Hello everybody and welcome back to this tutorial, and right now what we're going to do is we're going to start with this socket module. Now first of all, at the beginning we need to import our socket object, our socket library. So that is at least easy to do. Just open up your idle right here, open it up, and in order to actually use the socket library, all you need to do is simply just type import socket. The library is already pre-installed in Python, therefore we don't really need to use pip in order to install it. Now, to create a socket, you must use the socket.socket function available in the socket module. Now this has a general syntax and it will most likely always be the same, and the syntax looks something like this. So as equals socket.socket. Then first of all we will specify the socket family, which we'll talk about in just a second. So first of all socket family, then socket underscore type, and then the protocol, which will be by default set to be equal to 0. Okay, so first of all let's talk about all of these three values. The first one is the socket family. Now this is either going to be AF Unix or AF inet. Now, in order to specify that, you simply need to type here socket.af underscore inet, because that is the actual socket family that we're going to access, and the socket type will most likely be oriented to the type of the connection that you want to, whether it is a TCP or UDP connection. And by that I mean whether it is a connection oriented connection which requires a three-way handshake such as TCP protocol, or whether it is a connectionless connection or connectionless type of actual socket type, and therefore we need to specify sock underscore dgram. But we want to actually have a three-way handshake, we want a connection oriented connection, so right here we'll specify socket.sock underscore stream. In this last part, which is the actual protocol, which I set here to be equal to 0 for one reason, is because this is usually left out and the default actual value of the protocol is equal to 0. Now, of course, if you want to, you can simply change that, but for now on we don't really need it, therefore we are going to set it to be equal to 0 or simply just leave it out. Once you press your enter, you successfully created your socket object that belongs to the socket.af inet socket family, which means that this is going to be an IPv4 address or IPv4 IP address, and we set the socket.sock stream, which means that we're going to have a TCP connection. Okay, now once you have the socket object, then you can use the required functions to create your client or server program. Now, following the actual image that we saw in the previous video, we first of all, if we want to create the actual server code, we will simply just specify the bind function. Now, if you remember, the bind function will take two arguments. One of those arguments will be the actual IP address of our own server, so our own IP address, and the other one will be the actual port number that we want to listen on. Now, in order to check out your IP address, if you want to use this over your own local network, you can simply just type cmd. Once it opens up, first of all, make sure that you are connected to the internet, as I am right here. As you can see, network internet access, and all you need to do is type the command ipconfig. Now, what you are searching for in the result of the ipconfig is the actual IPv4 address, which is right here. And my current IPv4 address is 192.168.1.4. Okay, so just remember this IP address or copy it if you want to. Let us copy it. Okay, we copied it, even though I did remember it. You can leave it right here if you don't want to close it, and then you will call the bind function, which we simply just called s.bind. And the IP address has to be specified in between the quotes. So make sure to open double or single quotes, and also make sure that you open and close the actual brackets twice. And what I mean by that is I will show you just in a second. What you actually want to create right here is something like this. Let me just delete the single quotes. So open, and double closed single brackets. Okay, pardon me, not single brackets, just simply brackets, and then open single quotes and paste the actual IP address. And somehow it managed to paste it outside of the single quotes, it doesn't even matter, we will fix it, and then comma, specify the port number, which can be any number you want. I usually pick a high number because I know that most likely that port will not be used by any other application or program, so I will just simply specify 50,005 as a port. Press here enter, and we successfully coded the bind function, binding our own IP address, as we are the server right here. We're coding the server-side code, and we also binded the port 50,005. The next thing we want to do is we will call the listen function that is going to set up and start our TCP listener. Now the listen function basically takes only one argument, and that actual argument is going to be the number of requests that you want to have in your server-side code. So simply just specify s.listen, and if you want to have, for example, 3 connections, you specify here 3. If you want to have, for example, 5 connections, you simply just specify here 5. Okay? Once you do that, let me just see right here, Windows Defender firewall has blocked some of the features of this app. Okay, we want to actually allow the access because we know that it's us that is actually running this. Therefore, we're simply just going to click allow access. And then the next thing is basically establishing the actual connection. Okay, then once you actually code this part, you need to go to the actual client-side code. So we will open another idle, because we need to have 2 idles open in order for this to work. Just imagine that each idle is a different PC. It will work exactly the same, just you will specify different IP addresses right here, whether you're actually making a connection that is going to be in your local area network or outside of the local area network over the internet. So right here, what we want to do is we want to first of all import a socket, and the part of the client-side code is going to be rather the same as the actual server-side code. Not all of it, but the first part where we actually create the socket object is exactly the same. So we want to create the same socket object because we're going to perform the connection one with another. So or let's differentiate them just by simply specifying here that the name will be sock and not s. So sock will be equal to socket.socket. And we simply specify that we want the IPv4 address and that we want the TCP protocol. So in order to do that, we can simply just type here sockets.af_inet, comma, socket.sock_stream. As we can see, they're both exactly the same. Press here enter, and we created our socket object. The next thing we want to do is we can simply get the local machine name if we want to, so get host by name, which is not really something that you might need, especially if we know the IP address of our server, which is the IP address of my Windows 10 machine. We'll simply just specify only the port to be equal to the same port that you specified in the server-side code. Make sure that you don't really mistype the port, because then the connection will not work, as the client will try to connect to a different port. So both the IP address and the port have to be the same in the both programs. Okay, so the port is equal to 50,005. Yeah, it is equal to 50,005. And then afterwards, we can perform the connection to the host on the specified port. In order to do that, we call something similar to bind function, just this is reversed. So we call sock.connection, or connect, pardon me, not connection. And make sure that you once again open two open brackets and 2 close brackets, and then you specify first argument, which is going to be the IP address, which is 192.168.1.4, and then you simply specify the port number, which is going to be the port variable, because we actually stored this number into this variable. Press here enter, and we actually did perform the connection. Or pardon me, we didn't perform the connection, I just noticed. We didn't perform it for one actual reason, and that reason is because we didn't really call the accept function into our server code. Now you will notice, let me just go right here, that if I specify s.accept, or pardon me, the s.accept function will return the two values. One of them will be the socket object, where it will be stored in the memory, and the other one will be the address of the client, which will be the client's IP address as well as the port from which they are connecting to. So what we want to do is we want to split those two variables by simply specifying client socket, comma, and then client address will be equal to s.accept. Okay, so simple as that. We'll press your enter, and let me just see right here. Okay, client address. Let me just print the client socket just to see. Client address. Okay, so we did receive a connection, as we can see right here. We managed to actually connect. You can see that the connection from the client came from a whole different port, as we can see right here. The port from which connection was initiated, or from which the client initiated the connection, is port 53408. And the port where we actually got the connection back is the port 50005. Right now, once we actually establish the connection, we can exchange different messages if we want to. You can simply just print something like right after the actual accept function worked, which means that we got the connection back. You can simply just type got a connection from, and then you can simply just type %s, oops, and then the %string from the client address. Now make sure that you add the string right here, because otherwise this will not get printed out. You will get an error. You need to convert the client address into a string. Okay, and right now let's see how we can actually create and send messages and receive them between these two programs. In order to do that, we have certain functions that we already looked at in the previous video, and those functions are receive and send. The receive functions, this method basically receives TCP message, and the send function, this method transmits TCP message. Okay, so let's try to actually send from the server to the client a hello message. So in order to do that, we can simply just type the client socket, because make sure that right now you're no longer going to type s.send in order to send the message to the client. You will use the client socket that we received once the accept function was called. As you can see, the client socket is stored in the client socket library, variable. Therefore, we need to call it right here. So client socket.send, and in between the brackets, all we need to specify is basically the message that we actually want to send. Now, first of all, before actually doing this, since we are actually using Python 3, we will need to encode the message, and then we will need to decode it once the actual client receives the message. In order to do that, we'll simply just use the UTF encoding. First of all, let us type here message to be equal to input, enter any message, press your enter, it asks for message, and we will send to the client, hello, thanks for connecting. This is our message, press your enter, and in order to send this message variable, which contains this string right here, we need to encode it with the UTF-8. If you want to, you can use other encoder if you want. I will simply just use UTF-8, so message_encoded will be equal to message.encode, and in between the brackets we'll specify UTF-8. Press here enter, and now we have the message encoded, and all we want to do is simply send this message. So in order to do that, you simply just type client socket.send, and in between the brackets you simply specify what you want to send, and you want to send the message_encoded. Okay, but before you actually type here enter, you need to call the receive function onto the client side code. Okay, so in order to actually receive an actual message on the client side code, we need to call the receive function. So right here we will type, for example, message will be equal to sock.receive, because we are receiving from our own socket object we will simply just type here sock.receive, and this actual function, or the receive function, takes takes one argument, and that argument is the amount of bytes we want to receive. So if we specify right here 1024, this means that we don't want to receive more than 1024 bytes. So we'll just press here enter, and what you will notice right here is that the actual message basically hangs right here, or the receive function hangs right here, and basically the program will not continue executing until we actually receive some data to our client-side code. So you will notice, let me just make this smaller so we can see both windows at the same time. Let's make this big enough, okay. And if I right now press here enter, you can see we sent 29 bytes, and we can see that the program has continued executing, or basically this function is no longer hanging. If you just type your message, you will see hello, thanks for connecting, but you will see this B right here, which means that we actually need to decode this, and we can simply do that just by specifying message underscore decoded equals message.decode, and we want to decode the thing that we sent, and we sent it with the UTF-8 encoding. Therefore, message decoded, as you will see right here, will no longer have this B right here. It will just be a simple string. So don't forget that once you actually encode it in the Python 3, you also need to decode it, or pardon me, once you actually encoded it in the server-side code, you also need to decode it in the client-side code. As we can see right here, same goes if you want to perform the reverse action by client sending the message, we will see in just a second, and the server receiving the message, you need to perform the same action. So right here, once you actually receive the message, you can simply just type print message from server, and we will simply just concat message decoded, press here enter, and you will see message from server, hello, thanks for connecting. Then we can simply just type message underscore back will be equal to, let's say, input, do you want to respond, pardon me, to this server. And then we'll leave the actual open thing, so we can specify yes, thank you for letting me connect, and then exclamation mark, press here enter, and we can see we created the message back, which stores this string. Now in order to send it, we need to perform the same text just in the reverse as we did before. So first of all, what we're going to do is we'll call the receive function to the server, which is expecting an actual answer. In order to do that, we will just type here client socket.receive. We want to receive 1024 bytes from the client socket, which means from this client only. Now, if you had multiple clients connected and you specify this right here, you will know this function will not stop if you receive a message from a different client. It will only stop if you receive a message from the client that you specify the client socket for, as we can see right here. Right now, all we need to do is encode this, so message underscore back underscore encoded. You will notice that right now we are encoding here and decoding here, while as in the previous example we were encoding here and decoding in the client-side code. So message back encoded will be equal to message underscore back dot encode with the same encoder, which is going to be the UTF-8. And all we need to do is send this message. In order to do that, we simply just type sock.send, and we will send message underscore back underscore encoded. Press here enter. We can see that we received, or pardon me, we sent 38 bytes from the client-side code, and that is server received that message, just it still has this B. Therefore, we need to actually decode it in order to be able to print it as a string. So in order to do that, we can simply just type, oops, we didn't really store this in any string. Let me just repeat this code. Message back equals, and then we'll just type here client socket.receive then we will send this same message once again. So we actually store it on the server side into a variable, as we can see right here, again 38 bytes sent, and right here message back underscore decoded will be equal to message underscore back dot decode with the UTF-8. Press here enter, we can see it worked, and right now you can simply print response from the client, and then we will add plus message back underscore decoded. Press here enter and you can see response from the client. Yes, thank you for letting me connect. Okay, so basically we saw how we can send and receive messages between server and client. And what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to create a server and client side code, and we're going to see how we can actually create a while true loop that is going to be able to send messages indefinitely between the server and client side without us actually interact with code, without it also having any other problems such as hanging out on the connection if we, for example, mistype and specify both of those programs to receive an actual connection. So we're going to see how we can do that, and we're also going to see how we can send the messages indefinitely if we want to, and for example perform some different tasks from one PC on another PC. So that would be about it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will hope I see you in the next one. Bye!